Hello, everyone. I'm Louisa Reid, and this is my third novel in verse for young adults, my fourth novel in verse overall. It's called Activist, and it tells the story of Cassie, who is a brave, bold, and outspoken young person who finds herself up against kind of powerful structures that want her to keep quiet about all kinds of things. But she's decided she's not going to back down. She's going to challenge misogyny. She's going to challenge the destruction of her environment. She's going to gather the forces for good to combat the kind of forces for ill. So it's Cassie's story and how she goes about making change or trying to.
I think I probably know what inspired this book, but I'd love to know a little bit about kind of the thought process and what made you think, look, I need to write a book that explores these things.
I guess it's a culmination of loads of things, but for the last, I don't know how many years now, we've heard the Time's Up movement, the Me Too movement. We've seen the continued kind of violence against women. We see that has no sign, sadly, of stopping. Last night I was watching the TV and the local news, and it was just one story after another about violence against women, about women killed by men in their homes by people they knew, and the matter of a fact way in which that was told. It's just the culmination of all of that, and then the terrible atrocity of Sarah Everard's death, the treatment of people who went out to quietly commemorate her, and the kind of forces that acted against those protesters. Gosh, the way activists are talked about in the press, the mob, the zealots, the danger that they apparently pose, or the anger that's directed against the wrong people when we should be angry with the government that doesn't create change. It's all of that kind of fury coming through about why are we allowing this to go on? How do we stop it? And then seeing, because I'm a teacher as well as a writer, seeing at school the young people that I work with, their enthusiasm for change, how they want to get on board with people like Greta Thunberg, her school strikes, how they want to speak up and out against anti-feminism, the growth of anti-feminism. Oh, where does it end? The kind of it's just about all of those things really, and my reaction and response to that. And I wanted to look at that power of one voice speaking up, being brave enough just to keep going despite the kind of personal costs, the emotional costs of that, the flack you get from family who might think, oh, you're being silly, pipe down, it's not that bad. The school that says, come on, you're here to work, you need to get your exam results, that's what matters. But nevertheless, persisting and going forward, even within the context of all of that.
Yeah, definitely. I really liked how it showcased the difficulties that come with speaking out from places that you, if you're new to kind of, or you're thinking about speaking out, there are places that you wouldn't perhaps imagine would be like, oh, stop being silly. Don't you think you're being a bit over dramatic?
Yes.
What are you really gonna do about it? Like, what are you gonna gain from going and speaking on this, blah blah blah? Because sometimes I think the more hurtful thing is when it is those within your family or your friendship groups, or even like knowing that it's a school environment, for example, or something that is just this big overarching thing that you're like, but how can I learn when there's this going on at the same time? It's that strange dynamic of, but this is stopping me learning. This thing here affects every part of my life, and that includes me being comfortable to learn.
Absolutely.
So I mean, people will be able to see from the many. These are all like, oh hell yeah moments that I just read lines and was like, either I agree with that, or yes, or or just, yeah, it's incredible. Obviously the book tackles kind of really important narratives which can often be shied away from. And I'd love to know, as obviously a writer that writes about topics like this, how important do you think it is for YA readers to be able to get their hands on books like yours that do tackle those really key emotions and messages and talk about things that are like currently happening in the world? Because as a reader, I mean, I'm not a young adult anymore, unfortunately, but books like this I wish had been around a lot more when I was younger, and I think it would have helped a lot with even just feeling understood. So I'd love to know your kind of like thoughts on that as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm completely hoping and praying that lots of young people read this book, because that's why I wrote it, for them, like you say, so they can feel seen, that their experiences are acknowledged, and that adults care about that and want to talk about that, and hopefully create space for dialogue around these things. I want girls to read it, and boys to read it would be really great, and parents and teachers, so that everybody's included in that conversation, so that it can, because I would imagine that there would be some, you know, because some of the boys in this story, not all of them, some of the boys in this story behave in abominable ways. And I'm guessing that that will provoke a lot of outrage for some young male readers. But at the same time, unless we start challenging these ideas about that phrase, toxic masculinity, we won't be able to open out the conversation, say, hang on a minute, look, do you really think that feminism has gone too far? Can you really defend that point of view, that position? Let's talk about this. Let's not shout at each other and hate at each other on this, but let's just unpack that and unpick it and look at the evidence that actually says feminism is a great thing for boys. Empathy is a great thing for boys. Emotion is a great thing. Understanding each other, building homosocial relationships, boys who can be friends with each other just because they're boys and not get called names because of that. Let's have that open kind of discussion about what's good about feminism and how that can change things for the better for everyone, not just the girls in the class. But I think that's really, really hard and really, really tough. And but it needs to happen. So yes, fingers crossed. And absolutely for the girl reader, the young women, I really want them to feel that, look, people have got your back. And even though you may think that adults react against you, there are adults who are going to respond to you, and who will support, and who will be there and come together, because it's our adult responsibility for change just as much as it is for young people. We can't just expect the youth of today to be the ones that change things. It's got to be the grown-ups too.
Yeah, because I think, especially in the past couple of years, there's been a lot of talk about how we're seeing generations that are going to make the change. And I truly believe that we are seeing generations that can and will change the world. But at the same time, that phrase stresses me out a little bit, because just because I'm 28 doesn't mean I shouldn't be helping. It shouldn't all be on them, because that's overwhelming and stressful, and just something that, you know, you can't expect any one generation to change what many before have created. It's just not possible.
Yeah, completely, absolutely. And why should they have to? I think Cassie says at one point in the book that she doesn't want her childhood to have to be a war. And why should it? Her childhood should be the chance for her to enjoy, have fun, be full of new experiences, not constant anxiety and battle and combat with all these forces or people who seem set against her and her way of viewing the world. So it's definitely about finding a way to show that young people need security, they need safety, they need to feel that they're respected, that they have those interpersonal relationships with people. And even if things are going wrong on the outside world, beyond that, they've still got that network who are there to come together and say, yeah, we're in this with you. I think that's so important.
Definitely. It's that whole a problem shared is a problem halved kind of thing, which is so cheesy, but you know, it's true. Like, if no matter what you're going through, if you come back into your home or your community and you've got people there that are like, I've got your back, you can lean on me for however long you need to, that makes a difference. And I think that's some of the beauty about having books like this in YA, because they're accessible obviously to the youths. It gives a current viewpoint on young people's views and what is happening that is also accessible by everybody else. Like, adults should also read this book. Everyone. And I think that's what's so nice about YAs, that it does branch outwards as well.
Agreed, definitely.
Obviously, the title and the very essence of this book means that it's very clear it's a story about not giving in. And I'm sure that was the main message that you wanted people to take away. But I also liked that it showcased a voice that was powerful and passionate and, you know, had all these thoughts and plans. And obviously, as a young person, sometimes those thoughts are messy and big, but it showed all of that and showed the power that can come from one person's passion. Was that always kind of the plan, that you was going to focus on exploring that side of the kind of message?
I think so. I think I wanted to show that, as you pointed out, that it's not necessarily when you're 60, 70, you're not necessarily fully formulated in every view, that maybe there are some ways you can get things wrong, but that's actually completely fine. It's great to question. It's great to raise opposition, but at the same time hear another perspective and develop and grow through that dialogue, and that it doesn't have to end in just like nasty slanging matches the whole time, that people are allowed to disagree with one another. And it, you know, so much that you see, doesn't it, when people do disagree, it's just clash, and there's no middle ground found, no compromise, and no taking on board a different viewpoint. So I did want to show that. There's a scene where Cassie gets really cross about doing Jane Austen, and she's criticizing Austen for not being feminist enough, and that was part of that, really, because as an English teacher, you know, Jane Austen is one of my like top heroes, right? I just love her work, and I just wanted to show that, you know, there are, through that little bit of tiny scene, really, but little bit of debate and dialogue in that there's room for talking about things. And it might make you cross and it might make you frustrated, but there are other points of view, and sometimes you need to listen. And the same thing with Cassie and her friend Laurie. They kind of Cassie has to take a step back and think, well, am I always the voice that needs to be heard? Perhaps other people's voices have the right to talk about this a bit more than I do. So yeah, there's all sorts of complexities, aren't there, to activism and speaking out, and being able to acknowledge that some people have more wisdom, more experience, life experience, lived experience. And I wanted to draw out some of those little threads too.
Definitely. It was a really well thought out element that was in the book, that different people, just as a matter of fact, different people have different experiences and therefore are probably more clued up on certain aspects of a wider issue, and listening to them is only going to kind of like help inform you, and like you can there's I think what this book does really well is shows how you can kind of listen and challenge and kind of have the debate without it having to be that, well, no, I have this viewpoint, your viewpoint is wrong. There's room for movement, and it shows that you can, just because you have thoughts at a certain point of your life, those can develop and change and grow and become more encompassing of different elements. And there's always going to be certain people that think Jane Austen isn't feminist enough, but there's wiggle room, and you know, like, the difference of opinion is something that needs to be explored rather than just screamed down sometimes.
Definitely there's just too much screaming, not enough listening and collaboration and seeing each other as all having, you know, different perspectives depending on what angle we're coming at something from. So yeah, I enjoyed writing the debate scene as well, when I mean that turns really nasty, because obviously when it comes to the kind of hate speech that one of the people in this debate is allowed to put forward, I thought, well, we've got to also look at the things people say that maybe we actually really don't want to listen to and don't need a platform. And so that's there too, to complicate things further. But yeah, I mean, I would say most of the stuff in this book, I didn't need me to make things up so much. I was able to find from real life these examples. This has happened. I'm not like being extreme in my representations of the way people treat young women and girls, or those who are in minority groups. I'm not plucking these things out of my imagination. They have happened. There have been incidences in schools where misogynistic hate speech has been allowed to be disseminated to groups of young men. That I didn't make that up. That's happened. Not from people themselves, from the teacher doing it. It fascinates me, really. I mean, he did get sacked, so that's good, but yeah, it's just it's just so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what makes it such a powerful book. And it's because when you're reading it, I know I've had a few experiences in my life up until this point, and like that you can feel how real and how nothing in this book is taken to the point where it's like over the top or like unbelievable. Like, you know, nothing is exaggerated to prove a point. It's just so nuanced and clever. And obviously I agreed with I think at one point I was like, I don't know if I should tab this anymore, because I'm literally tabbing a line on every page. But I mean, that's the sign of a good book, surely. Obviously, The Activist is a novel in verse. What is it about writing in verse that kind of drew you to it? Is there something in particular that you really enjoy exploring ideas in this format? I'm not gonna lie, it is one of the first books I've read in verse, and I actually really enjoyed it.
Excellent.
I don't know why I haven't read more. I think it's, when I was younger, it wasn't something that you saw, definitely not in kind of the young adult / middle grade stuff that was available when I was younger. But this, like, I think I've always thought I wasn't smart enough for it. I think that's maybe what it was.
Oh, no,
because
of course you are.
But this, like, I flew through it, and it says so much with so little. And but I'd love to know what, like, as an author and a writer, drew you to like writing in that format.
Yeah, I mean, my first two novels were in prose. They came out a good while ago now. And then I got to this point where, I feel like I'm not telling the story in the right way. The story's not coming through. This is with gloves off, my first novel in verse. So I just thought, I'm going to give it a go. Having read some novels in verse, really enjoyed that format, really felt myself immersed. And like you've just said, tearing through it, turning the pages. And young people don't want to be bored. I mean, how many of us do want to be bored? Not many, but they have very little patience for kind of especially some readers wading through mountains of text. And I thought, well, if I'm boring myself, I'm boring them. So I'm going to try something else. I'm going to try a different way. And I think it's that combination of the emotional impact of the sparseness of the language, so that you get that kind of hard-hitting subjectivity of your main character, and then it's also combined with the propulsive nature of this of the page turning experience, and the story can rapidly find its feet and the plot can speed along, but at the same time you are absolutely kind of drawn closely, intimately into the world that your protagonist is fighting in or dealing with, and those conflicts can become very, very very heightened because of the kind of sparsity, as I said, of words on the page. I think readers also enjoy the white space, the ability to kind of bring their own thoughts and feelings and experiences and that dimension into the verses, and find that not everything is given to them, that there is also that space for your own kind of imaginative play with it. So yeah, I love writing like this, and it's really hard for me to write in other ways now. I just really enjoy it. I want to get to the heart of things. I want to focus in on the key emotion. Like you said, you thought you weren't smart enough for it. Well, I think poetry for a long time has had that kind of elitist kind of connotation to it, but in a verse novel, that's not the thing at all. It is really, because it's usually free verse. It's usually the language that you're used to speaking, but just that with added poetic quality. So you're calling on all of the kind of poetic methods a poet would use, but at the same time, you're never losing sight of the story that goes with that. It's the two things combined with loads of drama thrown in. So yeah, I really
all
enjoy
the drama.
all the drama. Got to have drama.
No, I did find when I was reading it, it was because everybody who knows me knows I read a lot of fantasy, and the reason I read so much fantasy is I really like being like fully immersed in a world, and this for me had the same effect in a completely different way, like because I think I was so connected to the character and I was feeling what she was feeling so intensely with, so even though there's so few words, I mean, obviously you think of some fantasy books and they're like huge, so I'm gonna need more is all I'm saying.
Brilliant.
It was that when I was reading it, it didn't even feel like there would, obviously it's compact, few words, the words that are chosen are important, and I think it didn't feel like there was few words because I felt so connected to what was happening and the emotions that come with that. And as you say, that kind of like a little bit of white space as well, especially with the topic that you've covered in Activist, gave me space to kind of link in my own personal experiences or stories that I know have happened to my friends or other individuals that kind of like I've heard about or know about, and I was kind of like almost self-populating other characters into the world, which
amazing
was you have converted me.
Excellent. That is my aim in life, is to convert everybody to the power of the verse novel. And we're lucky because loads more verse novels are out and about at the moment. So I think it's just a really good time in UKYA for the verse novel. And yeah, let's have more. I love it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I flew through it. I would have read it in one sitting if not for the fact I would have had to use matchsticks to keep my eyes open. I was like, I'll just read a little bit before bed.
Yeah.
And then I'm like on page 100 and something, trying to like force my eyes open to read more. So I'd love to know a little bit about what kind of like the writing process looks like when you are creating a novel. I know some people have very detailed plans and some people just kind of go in with an idea and see what happens. I'd love to know where you fit on that like kind of vast scope.
I go in with an idea and see what happens. So I usually have a character in mind, a theme in mind. I've kind of emotionally connected with that character and understand them somehow, but not through writing like loads of character notes or anything, just through my own imagination. And then I just start and then I just go until I've stopped. And then that's it, finished. And then obviously my editor, who is absolutely brilliant, Bella at Guppy Books, she'll read and then she'll come back with, okay, that's great, but can you have a look at these things? And then it's kind of going back over and getting into it and really because I think I cut there were quite a few scenes that got cut from this actually, so it was longer to begin with, but I think I had an extra part where she gets really angry with a head teacher and she kicks a glass door or something and it smashes, and there's this whole other plot strand about her. She's got this foot and it's all bloody and bleedy. She's on crutches for ages, hobbling about, and so that all had to go just to kind of keep the pace, keep the impact, keep the focus. So yes, because I don't plot, I'll end up with perhaps more material than I need, and I need to come back and pull things to make it as taut and tight as possible. But yes, I am not a plotter, but maybe I should start to make my own life easier so that I don't have to do quite so much chopping when it comes to the final thing. But I just like getting caught up in telling of the story. I don't want to check notes and that I'm following my plan. I want to just do it.
Yeah, I think I am not a writer at all, but I think I do a lot of design work, and I've tried the whole like planning how I like, detailing what I want a brief to look like and giving myself kind of ideas and notes and visual inspiration. But I'm far better at just like getting a blank page and just like blur on it almost.
Yes, definitely.
Because I think then it kind of creates itself in a way. I'm just there to help the creation process
exactly.
rather than I think when I've tried to kind of plan and try and stick to it, it's just felt a bit like I don't too restricted. I like to see where things kind of naturally
I agree. That's what I like too. But I think I had the idea for writing about these girls and Cassie and her friends a long time ago. And I just wrote the first verse that is now in the shape of a rainbow. It wasn't originally in the shape of a rainbow. So some things like that I will go back in and change after that. Perhaps wouldn't be what I did first off. But I wrote that when I was just reflecting on the kind of brilliance of young people, the kids I see every day at school streaming out of the gates, and this kind of joyful, wonderful image of friendship and diversity. And that's where that began. And I wrote that ages ago, just kind of not even as part of the book, but then I thought, yes, I want that to kind of frame the whole thing, this image of life and vitality and joy. So it's funny, isn't it, how things you do, they just all kind of feed into each other gradually.
Yeah. I'd love to know a little bit, obviously with this being one of my first novels in verse, how do you go around and decide and think, because I loved it, to have the kind of words in that I adore this.
Yes, I love it.
But like what?
How?
How?
Well, I think it comes from with that first bit. I just thought, oh, it would be so lovely if I could make that look like a rainbow, so that it's almost a concrete poem, as well as the words being so important. And lots of verse novelists do this, and I would say actually, the ones that I've looked at are way more skillful than me. I mean, if you go back to the history of kind of verse novels, some of the earliest ones like Crank by Ellen Hopkins, who's a US author, I think you'd really enjoy that. I mean, she does some amazing things with layout and page formatting. I'm not hugely visual in that way, but there are moments that where I just want to feel that the form of the words on the page echoes the meaning, and that it won't stop the kind of emotional engagement with the story. It won't take you out of it. It will only add to it. So that's where it comes from for me. And I do enjoy the playfulness of it as well, and the kind of interactivity too that can come with that. But yes, it's a nice thing, isn't it, to have that kind of additional element that's striking and thought-provoking.
I really, one, visually, it looks incredible. And two, like the fact, as you say, it echoes the messages. It almost gives them that extra kind of push.
Yes.
And like just yes on so many levels.
Yes.
Before we go, I'd love, obviously, as somebody who is new to this, I'd love to know if there's any that you would kind of recommend. I have got on order your others.
Ooh, excellent.
So I will be reading those.
Yes.
And I will probably be having them. I might have to buy more tabs. Maybe that's what I should do before they show up.
Yes.
Invest in some more tabs.
Yes, definitely. So I've got a whole load here. Let's see what we've got. I've got Blood Moon by Lucy Cutshew, which is amazing. I think you'd really love this. It's about periods, sex, and online shaming. Amazing verse novel. So I hugely recommend that. Well, what else have I got? Oh, this one, Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. One of my absolute favorites, all-time favorites. This is about a young man whose brother has been shot dead in gang violence in NYC. It's by Jason Reynolds, as I said, who I just think is amazing. I've even got this one signed and dedicated to me because I met him in Manchester in the summer. And it's all about the younger brother's decision. Will he go and have revenge against his brother's killer? So amazing revenge story about cycles of violence and crime, and the way young people negotiate a way through that when there's this kind of expectation. The rules are, if your brother gets shot, well, you need to go out there and you need to shoot the guy that did that. Challenging that, exploring that, and the voice is and structure are so good. What else have we got lurking here? We can't go without talking about Manjeet Man, The Crossing, which is just beautiful, dual POV. And it's about Natalie, who's lost her mum. She lives in Dover. She's a swimmer and she's thinking about swimming the Channel. It's a kind of refuge. It's a kind of way to make sense of things after this terrible loss. And Sammy, who's fled his home in Eritrea and is trying to make it to the UK across the Channel, his journey into well, hoping that he gets here. And the two stories interlap and weave with one another in so many beautiful ways. So that's another top recommendation. But as you can see, I've got my little shelf of verse novels here. I've got heaps of them and they're all just really good. I love it.
I'm so excited because it is like it's like a whole new world has opened up, like a whole new form of book that like
you'll love it.
I'm obviously obsessed with.
Yeah. I'm so delighted you're obsessed with it and that you enjoyed it. That's just the best thing.
No, it was honestly, I mean you can see I was shouting with the character. I was like, it really was one of those books that just, it spoke to me on many levels.
Yeah. That's amazing. Thank you, Charlie. I really appreciate it.
I mean, it's gorgeous. I mean, look at this cover.
It's beautiful, isn't it? I love the cover. Yuzen Kai did the cover, and she's so talented, and she's done the new covers for Gloves Off and Wrecked as well. So they all have beautiful little matching sets, and they look fab together.
Yeah, they're gonna look adorable on my shelf. Although I have realized that I now need to leave a gap at the back of my shelf to make
for the tabs.
Like I can't just shove them all the way in anymore, because I've got to leave because I don't want folded up tabs either. So
definitely not.
Apparently some people tab different to that. I'm new to the tabbing thing.
Yeah. It's tricky business. I think there's a skill involved with it.
Yeah, well, I've seen a lot of people do color-coded tabbing and things like on social media. I just tab things that just like bring me joy or stand out, or I'm like, oh yes, yes, I agree, yes. I'm kind of that chaotic person that's just like,
chaotic tabbing is fine.
Yeah. I mean, I know now visually that I really enjoyed this book, like, because I don't even want to think how many tabs I've
but that is testament to the power of activist, which is amazing.
Yes, it's such a powerful. I don't have the words. You have them, and they're in here. And you have the power of words, and you've used them well.
Thank you.
I am the excitable person that's like, yes. I agree with both words.
Yes, you are exactly what my book needs: excitable people to read it and cheer along with Cassie and her pals.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much for answering my questions and for writing this and introducing me into a whole new world of books, and for just writing something that is it's just
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to talk to you, and thanks for your brilliant questions and for all the lovely chatting. It's been amazing.